One congresswoman says the guidelines are, quote, clear as mud. That statement coming from Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was diagnosed with breast cancer in her 40s, and she is now calling for hearings on this issue. Congresswoman, we are glad to have you with us today. I want to talk about these potential new guidelines and what you're hoping to do by way of calling for hearings. But first, tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, just about 2 years ago, I was doing a self-exam in the shower, and I found a lump in my breast. Just 6 weeks after a clean mammogram, I knew it wasn't normal, and I went to my doctor, and within a couple of weeks was diagnosed with very early-stage breast cancer. And I credit early detection for the fact that I'm still here and that I didn't have to have more significant treatment.
Well, and we're very glad for it. And, you know, I've read an awful lot of stories, unfortunately, that are similar to yours. When you first heard these recommendations yesterday from this task force, what was your initial reaction?
Well, as someone who was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 41, I find the recommendations really disturbing. I mean, to suggest that women between 40 and 49 years old not get mammograms routinely, not do breast self-exam, that doctors not do clinical breast exam, leaves women 40 to 49 years old essentially with nothing to make it more likely that they catch their breast cancer early. And the argument that the task force is making, and that we're going to cause angst and anxiety and possibly, over-treat a certain group of women and only save a few lives, what does that say to the women whose lives would be saved? It's a very patronizing attitude that these scientists have taken. It's pretty outrageous to suggest that women couldn't handle more information. Information and knowledge is power. It was for me, and that's why I caught my breast cancer early, because I knew, Heidi, that it was important to know the look and feel of my breasts, so I would know what was normal for me, so that I would know when something felt different.
Well, good for you, and it really is a very good example for a lot of women out there. And I think that one of the main issues here, at least from what I am hearing, nearly everyone that I talk to is, okay, we can all understand and be intelligent enough to say, all right, this is a case-by-case basis. If that's what the recommendations are, I will decide for myself with my doctor what I should be doing. But unfortunately, if a task force like this has as much power and weight as it does, are there not possible implications that could come later about your insurance and whether or not insurers will have to continue paying for mammograms? What then?
Absolutely. That is the biggest concern, is that insurance companies often use this task force's recommendations for making their coverage decisions. And there's an insurance company that has already said they will be using the recommendations as the guideline for their coverage decisions. And so women 40 to 49 would no longer be able to get routine mammograms paid for by their health insurance. And as a result, because of the confusion, because you have the American Cancer Society and the Komen Foundation adamantly against these recommendations, the task force making the recommendations, insurance companies making decisions based on those recommendations, you're going to end up causing fewer and fewer women to be able to, who are 40 to 49, to be able to get access to early screening and mammograms, and we know that that will cause more deaths, which is the opposite of what we've had happen. Over the last 20 years, since we've had routine screening for women over 40, the death rate has come down. It's just absolutely irresponsible, and we need to hold congressional hearings. And I was thrilled to hear that my colleague Frank Pallone, the chairman of the Health Subcommittee in the House, is planning on holding hearings on these recommendations next month.
Okay, so I want to talk about that very quickly here. What do you hope the hearings will accomplish? I mean, what will that process be? I mean, is it possible that a task force like this would ever take this recommendation back?
Well, there's a difference. I think it has to be understood. There's a difference between scientific recommendations. This is an independent task force. It's not the government. The policymakers ultimately are the ones that make the decision about what the government's policy is on routine screening and mammograms. And that's what hearings will do. Hearings will help us reach the appropriate policy conclusion, which I believe is that these recommendations should be set aside. We should follow the guidance of the American Cancer Society and the Komen Foundation, major cancer organizations, and medical experts across the country that say that routine screening, routine mammograms, and clinical breast exams and breast self-exam for women over 40 is what continues to be appropriate.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate your personal story, and we will definitely continue to follow this here. You'll tell my producers in a little while who the insurance company is, because